South Africa is known to be an arid country with citizens constantly being reminded to conserve water. Nelson Mandela Bay is among the areas that have struggled with water shortages. This has been attributed to drought and the mismanagement of water resources. So what is it that we can learn from Nelson Mandela Bay? For that discussion, we're joined by Kate Stubbs, Business Development Director at Interwaste. Kate, thank you very much for availing yourself this afternoon. So you argue that there's an opportunity where wastewater is concerned. What are we talking about and how can it possibly help?
Yeah, I think you've clearly stated South Africa, we are a water scarce country and we have, and our water systems are in quite a dire state. And so what we have to do quite urgently is look at diversifying our water mix and looking at how we can actually recycle and repurpose and reuse our wastewater as an additional water source. So a recent Green Drop report, which is a report on the state of our wastewater management systems in South Africa, showed that 34% of all our wastewater management systems are in a critical state. And the problem with that is that we're seeing, that affects the quality of our drinking water as well as it further pollutes our water system. So from a wastewater perspective, there are technologies and processes we can use to look at repurposing water to alleviate some of the stress on our natural systems.
Sure. Let's speak to the everyday South African. How do I recycle water? How do I repurpose water? And how do I reuse water in my everyday life?
Yeah, I think it actually all starts with all of us as individuals. And I think potentially most of us as South Africans don't place as much value on water as we should. Historically, our water quality has been relatively high. We have seen it being diminished, but we haven't, our natural sewage systems, most of our sewage systems are run on fresh water. We wash our cars happily, and I think we haven't valued water as much as we should. So, and we are seeing more and more impact on supply into our own homes. So what we need to do firstly is be mindful of water use at home, fix leaks, just like with electricity and just like the energy shortage we've seen is we've just got to become a lot more aware and respectful potentially of our water systems, and that starts with our own behavior in our own homes.
This lack of value in what we have in terms of this very critical resource, reports indicate that the country will reach a level of water deficit by 2040, meaning what if this actually does happen?
Well, water shortage, so it will mean instantly there will be water shortages, just like we potentially have in load shedding or limited water supplies. And then we also, if we don't start acting now, we're seeing a diminishing quality of our water system, which has direct health implications. So I think we actually urgently need to move on this one, and it starts with us as individuals, but there's a lot happening from a government perspective. There's a lot more focus. We've got poor infrastructure that needs to be repaired, but also from a legislative side, once again affecting maybe the waste industry, is government banned liquid waste streams, effluent waste streams from being disposed of to landfill in 2019. So what's that done is that any industry that is creating effluent or liquid or sort of waste has needed to look at alternative treatments. So there has been innovation in terms of wastewater treatment plants, and a lot of industry is taking accountability in terms of their own water usage and looking at how they can recycle and reuse their water systems. And I think a lot of that is also coming not only from a legislative side, but from an ESG. There's a lot of focus on climate change and environmental impact, and companies are taking it upon themselves to manage their use of water and other resources more effectively.
When it comes to water preservation, recycling, repurposing and reusing, do you get a sense that there's enough education around this issue, especially for the average South African?
No, I think waste in general, but in that sense, no, there's not enough. There's a lot more happening. So on a side, there's a lot more happening. And sadly, you've seen what's happened in Nelson Mandela Bay. We saw what happened in Cape Town. Sometimes it takes a crisis in order for us to be aware and change our behavior. But do we always have to wait for the actual dire crisis? So no, I think we learned a lot in Cape Town, but I think I personally am based in Johannesburg. I think there's a lot more that we need to do and to educate ourselves and businesses in the country on how we can preserve and protect our water sources more effectively.
In Nelson Mandela Bay, you saw gift of the givers coming in and plugging the gap. They found boreholes, and sometimes when you drive around Johannesburg, you'll see a sign outside somebody's residence saying this is a borehole residence, if you will. I mean, what can residents do where that is concerned, right? So maybe to alleviate the pressure, is that an option, and how costly is it?
Yeah, we haven't actually, so I think there is a focus when I talked earlier about looking at diversifying the water mix. 77% of all our water usage is surface water and only 9% from our groundwater. And we do have in certain areas good groundwater. So, I mean, there's always a cost implication of not everyone's able to just sink their own borehole, but there's certainly, that is a focus area to see how can we better access our groundwater, underground water systems. I think we also just need to be cognizant of the quality thereof, and once again, managing that quite so that we don't pollute the groundwater systems, and also manage the quality coming out of those. But that's certainly an option.
What are industries doing to protect this resource?
So I mean, a lot of the large industrial clients, those that are heavy water users have already, in many cases where it's commercially viable, put their own wastewater treatment plants on site. I mean, that's typically where an expert would come in and assist them, where site where they're using a lot of water, they'll repurpose it and reuse that back into their system. So a lot of water, I mean, most water, effluent, dirty water can be, with the technology available today, can be recycled. Almost 100% of it, even to the level of being potable again. There's obviously a cost involved, but so much water, and it doesn't matter if it's got acid in or oily water, there are different systems and processes, biological and chemical, to manage it. For that liquid to be reused, either it doesn't always have to be drinkable, but it can be used for industrial cleaning, for dust suppression, for irrigation. You know, so we're seeing a large amount of those clients, especially the more heavy industries who use a lot of water, installing their own sort of reuse plants on site, wastewater treatment plants on site.
Kate Stubbs, Business Development Director at Interwaste. Thank you.